speedrunning has changed. From submitting runs to Speed Demo's archive, to scrolling past 400 ads on speedrun.com, timing runs with W-Split to timing them on LiveSplit, recording on Amarek to recording on OBS, and of course, Speedruns Live. You know, Speedruns Live. That logo that's in the layout of every single old speedrun on those Summoning Salt videos. Speedruns Live was the central hub for speedrunning, containing a directory of, well, speedruns that are live. However, the main focal point of this site a lot of speedrunners actually remember was not this directory feature, it was the racing aspect. During this era, speedrun races were much more popular than they are today, and by using an ancient piece of caveman technology known as an IRC client, you could connect with friends and community members to race a speedrun. This created a very unique culture in Zelda speedrunning, as the majority of any % speedruns were hours long, and not very convenient to race with due to this length. And so, the concept of race categories were born, which were shorter, non-full game categories designed to be short and accessible in a race setting. However, speedrun racing has seen a steady decline in popularity over the years, and for a number of reasons. The bigger focus on RTA speedruns have left racing behind. The segregation of communities through the inception of Discord also left behind a need for a central speedrunning hub. And, of course, the fact that Speedruns Live still requires the use of an IRC client in the good year of 2024. While a very new solution to these problems has been created, we will talk about it a little bit more later. With the death of speedrun races though, what happened to the race categories created during the time? Well, for the most part, they've been left behind. So let's take a look at some Zelda speedruns that have been lost to time. Twilight Princess notoriously has had one of the longest any % speedruns out of every non-remake 3D Zelda, even in the modern era of Zelda speedruns. Due to this, it was a prime candidate for a shorter race category. Forest Temple RTA was one of the original go-to race categories for Twilight Princess. The premise of this category is simple, just complete the Forest Temple from a new file. This speedrun is now known as Forest Temple No Save and Quit. However, from what I can tell, save and quit was allowed in some of the earliest races of the category. The current state of Forest Temple No Save and Quit is near indistinguishable from its original form. Originally, it was a relatively simple category, completing the first Orden Days, doing the sewers as Wolf Link, completing the Farron Twilight, acquiring the Gale Boomerang, and skipping the majority of the rest of the dungeon through the use of the long jump attack glitch. This is by definition a perfect speedrun race category. It's short, easy to learn, and relatively easy to complete a run of. This made Forest Temple No Save and Quit a staple of the Twilight Princess racing scene. However, a more recent discovery in Twilight Princess known as rod duping would forever change this category. By pulling the fishing rod while climbing onto Epona, speedrunners can dupe the fishing rod over and over again, which in turn can fill up the game's memory. Doing this in the Forest Temple No Save and Quit speedrun can allow runners to unload the load transition to South Farron Woods. This can allow runners to ride Epona out of bounds all the way into the Forest Temple early. This skips a vast amount of the run that was in the original route, and in turn kind of breaks what made this route so special as a racing category. This is obviously vastly different from what was intended from the category's inception, and the original state of this run is fully lost to time. It's so lost to the point that there is not a single run from the original era with video footage on the speedrun.com leaderboards. Twilight Princess is not the only game to have a category suffer this same fate though. Its sister game, The Wind Waker, also had a very long any % run before the discovery of barrier skip. In the true fashion of a race category that completes the first dungeon, The Wind Waker Din's Pearl was created with the same intentions as Twilight Princess Forest Temple RTA. The Wind Waker has always been a notoriously difficult run to get into, even without the crazy modern tech of Manual Superswim. Din's Pearl worked as a fantastic race category and beginner category for runners new to the game, looking for something short to be able to learn a speedrun without having to dedicate the time of learning the entire any % route. This is actually one of the very first speedruns that I personally ran. The premise, as always, was intended to be simple. Complete Outset, Forsaken Fortress 1, get the sail to get to Dragon Roost, and complete Dragon Roost Cavern. The simplicity of this category really let it shine in its early days, even getting a demonstration run at the Zelda Speedruns Marathon in 2018. which 16-year-old me was blessed with the opportunity to commentate.
What a legendary category.
Heard it's gonna be the next Olympic Games. It's gonna be crazy.
But as all good things do, Din's Pearl has had a significant drop in popularity over the years, and for multiple reasons. For one, the advancement in any percent has severely dropped the time commitment required to speedrun the full game, lessening the need for a shorter category. Additionally, with the implementation of the Manual Superswim, a notoriously difficult trick at the beginning of the run to skip straight to Dragon Roost, has vastly raised the barrier of entry for new runners, turning a simple category anyone could pick up into one with a much higher skill floor. This run went as a great introduction to new speedrunners and a perfect racing category into one that is now widely regarded as nothing better than a meme category.
Oh
Yeah.
man, where to start about Din's Pearl? What a legendary category.
But if we're to talk about categories falling out from technological advancements, I can't help but mention Ocarina of Time's Defeat Ganon No SRM speedrun. While this category does still have a relatively active scene, a number of circumstances have turned this category into something near unrecognizable. If you have no idea what this category even is, you might remember it as the most memorable Ocarina of Time any percent route, where speedrunners would perform a glitch known as Ganondorf, allowing them to perform something known as a wrong warp, from the Great Deku Tree to the endgame collapse sequence. This was the it speedrun back in the day, and was one of the first runs that really put Ocarina of Time speedrunning on the map. It's undeniable that a lot of Zelda speedrunning history owes itself to this category. At the time, it was the perfect route for new runners. There was high-level competition and exciting world record progression. The route was simple, and followed a pretty simple formula. You would get a Deku Stick or the Sword and Shield, escape the Kokiri Forest, acquire the Kakariko Bottle, get past Mido, wrong warp to the end of the game, and defeat Ganon. Since then, though, this speedrun has been beat into the ground by the ever-evolving nature of Ocarina of Time. First, it was the fact that the iQ Player, a Chinese-exclusive game console, was faster for the category due to the higher text speed, which vastly increased the barrier of entry to top-level play, due to the difficulty of importing it to the West. Then, it was the highly luck-dependent get item manipulation glitch, which was used to acquire the bottle in Deku Tree. This glitch crashed on the iQ and N64 versions of the game, which did move competition back to the Wii Virtual Console. Lunatic J has a great video on this controversy, so I'd recommend checking it out if you're interested in learning more. With the discovery of a new, non-RNG dependent method of get item manipulation, the category saw a little bit of peace. Don't get me wrong, it was still relatively difficult to get into, but at the very least, it was somewhat accessible and familiar to its past revisions. Then, the category once again was turned on its head with the discovery of stale reference manipulation in 2019, turning Ocarina of Time any percent into what we have today, a setup to warp to the credits in just a handful of minutes. Stale reference manipulation is an incredibly complicated glitch, but as a brief explanation, by picking up an unloaded object, speedrunners are able to write data anywhere in memory due to a use after free vulnerability, which in turn can allow things such as a wrong warp straight to the credits. This had an impact on much more than just any percent, causing almost every single Ocarina of Time speedrun to be split into SRM and no SRM subcategories. Any percent was no different, and to preserve the original route, Defeat Ganon No SRM was created, causing the run to lose its any percent namesake and a lot of the hype surrounding it, because quite simply, the general public had no idea what it even was, or quite frankly didn't care, because it wasn't the fastest way to beat the game. This is a phenomenon in much more than just Ocarina of Time speedrunning, and is near impossible to avoid. But the route was preserved, and competition did still thrive over the course of the next couple years. From there, the route was relatively the same. There was a couple more advancements here and there, but earlier this year with the discovery of Dynapoly wrong warping, which, rather than wrong warping from the Great Deku Tree like years prior, was now faster to perform a different wrong warp from the Dodongo's Cavern. And don't get me wrong, this is still a really cool and interesting route. I'd really recommend checking out some of the top runners who compete in it. It's a real demonstration on how far Ocarina of Time speedrunning has come. But it's undeniable that this staple of Zelda speedrunning is indistinguishable from what it used to be. It lost its namesake, its route, its familiarity, its skill accessibility, and even its financial accessibility due to it being run on the GameCube Collector's Edition or Master Quest release. As you can probably tell by now, Lots of Zelda games have had a good handful of runs that are either completely forgotten about or just simply way different now. However, if there's one game where it should be a bit unexpected for this to be the case, it's Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask has always had a big focus on preserving the routes and speedruns that are or were popular. It's why the Majora's Mask extension boards are as massive as they are, and why our most popular category still holds the any percent namesake. However, that is not to say there aren't any categories that have been forgotten by choice. To talk about this category though, we have to open a big can of worms and discuss the dark age of Majora's Mask speedrunning, Debug Menu. While a lot of people like to point towards stale reference manipulation hindering Ocarina of Time speedrunning, it actually completely saved Majora's Mask. Up to the discovery of stale reference manipulation, Majora's Mask was dealing with its own highly controversial discovery, text overflow. While this really could be an entire video on its own, here's a brief overview. In Majora's Mask, a glitch was discovered in 2014 called Index Warp, which allowed speedrunners to warp to owl statues that have not yet been activated. It worked by hitting an owl statue in West Clocktown that is not supposed to be accessible by the player, bypassing the text box telling the player that they must have hit an owl statue to be able to warp. However, this hidden owl does not have its own index on the map, and since the Song of Soaring and map menus share a cursor index, speedrunners could manipulate the index values by highlighting the Z or R buttons on the map menu, incrementing or decrementing the warp destination. This led to glitched index values that could open the debug menu, a hidden developer tool that let the developers edit Link's inventory. To access it, runners had to hit the hidden owl, go to Deku Palace, manipulate the game's heap, and play the Song of Soaring 63 times to open the menu and give Link the boss remains needed to finish the game. Oh, and it also only worked on the Wii U Virtual Console release, which was plagued by a huge number of problems, making it the de facto worst version to play on. The discovery of stale reference manipulation created an any percent route that was much faster and much less painful to speedrun, leaving the debug menu speedrun as one the community at large has done its best to forget. As I said earlier, a new solution to speedruns live was created. This is known as the run.gg, a new modern platform to find and raise speedruns. This video isn't sponsored by them or anything, by the way. I just love what this platform has done and its potential to once again reshape the way that we approach speedruns. I can't recommend checking out the site enough. As you can tell, Zelda speedruns have had a number of routes and categories lost over the years, and I believe that this video is only scratching the surface. Are there any runs that you remember watching that aren't around anymore? Let me know in the comments below and maybe it'll get featured in a follow-up video. Zelda speedrunning has seen so many routes and categories fade away, but it's truly a testament to the dedication of the community that these games continue to evolve. Whether these changes are for the better or for the worst, it's clear that Zelda speedrunning has achieved feats that no one could have predicted. But this has been Jake, and thank you for watching.